Bowfinger, a 1999 American satirical buddy comedy film. Directed by Frank Oz, written by the star, Steve Martin, and co-starring Eddie Murphy. The film depicts a down-and-out filmmaker in Hollywood attempting to make a film on a small budget with a star who does not know that he is in the movie. The film also stars Heather Graham, Christine Baranski, and Terrence Stamp in Vincent's selection for our 2024 premiere of the Micheaux Mission. Vincent, what say you of Bowfinger?
Well, just to contradict something that I said when we started the show about how I don't really want to engage in gossipy stuff and be that gossipy. I'm going to engage in a little gossip.
Spill some tea.
My favorite Jerry Lewis movie is sort of the straightforward, like it's the Purple Rain of Jerry Lewis movies, which is The Nutty Professor.
Okay.
Which most modern audiences know the Nutty Professor story because of, appropriately enough, Eddie Murphy's remake of it, where you have a professor who falls in love with a student in the original one. It gets a little icky, Stella Stevens, and but because he's kind of goofy, he concocts a formula to turn himself into a cool guy, Buddy Love. Right. And Jerry Lewis made the original one. And the gossipy part is that when he becomes Buddy Love, there were really two rumors about who Buddy Love was based on. Right. Because Buddy Love is a super cool guy, but he's also cruel and mean, as you know. And of course, she figures out that she's really in love with the Nutty Professor, who is kind. And the two rumors were always that Buddy Love was based on his ex-partner, Dean Martin. And this was a very mean-spirited caricature of Dean Martin.
Yes.
And that's the juicy, sexy rumor. The other rumor, which I've always believed more than not, was that this was really a bit of introspection on Jerry Lewis's part. And that the Buddy Love character represented the side of Jerry Lewis that people didn't see unless you knew him personally, people who worked with him, and that this was kind of representative of his own dark side.
Okay.
So put a pin in that.
I will.
The other thing that I love about the Nutty Professor, and you see this is that Jerry Lewis doesn't really have a lot of effects to help him transform into Buddy Love. Like, I think he has like some, corner store teeth, maybe some glasses, but 90% of his transformation from the Nutty Professor to Buddy Love is Jerry Lewis's mastery of his own physicality. And this mastery of his physicality is why people champion Jerry Lewis and say he's a genius. And, for a long time, it was a cliche that the French loved him so much because he's sort of in the school of a Buster Keaton or Charlie Chaplin. And I have to say, when Eddie Murphy announced he was going to remake The Nutty Professor, I was always really disappointed that he hid himself under all the prosthetics. Like, I wanted more of a physical transformation with his own physique, like Jerry Lewis did.
Right.
I say all of that to say the main reason I love this film is that, in my mind, this is the closest Eddie Murphy has gotten to the spirit of Jerry Lewis in The Nutty Professor, where he plays these two roles. Kit Kincaid, who is...
Kit Ramsey,
who's an action star and one of these big 90s over-the-top stars, which, back to the rumor with Jerry Lewis, is in many ways a caricature of the Eddie Murphy rumor. Like this sort of, like, Eddie Murphy is over the top. Eddie Murphy is sort of aggressive with people. Eddie Murphy has a posse. You know, he's very much, you know, he kind of has all these conspiracy theories. He's very much the big Hollywood guy. He is part of a cult that very much, absolutely, categorically is not Scientology at all. Not at all, very much.
Right.
But when he transforms into a character, Jiff, who we come to find out is his brother, his whole body changes.
Yeah.
His whole body changes. His voice changes. His mannerisms change. And it is such a complete transformation that when you say Eddie Murphy is the co-star of this film, you forget how much Eddie Murphy is in the film. Because when he transforms into this other character, it's easy to forget it's Eddie Murphy. You think he's just playing Kit Ramsey.
Right.
But you forget he's also playing this other guy.
Right.
So that's really the foundation of why I brought this film here. And, you know, but there's so much else to celebrate about this. I mean, you know, just right off the top, you talk about the bones of this thing. Frank Oz is an amazingly seasoned director. He's an amazingly seasoned director of comedy.
Yes, he is.
And this is, I always forget how peppy this film is. This film bounces just from scene to scene, from moment to moment. And part of the, besides his direction, you've got this amazing script by Steve Martin, who is by 99 has been in Hollywood damn near 50 years. Well, 99 is maybe 40 years. So he knows the ins and outs of Hollywood and how films are made and what does and does not happen. B, he is rightfully so one of the most celebrated comedians of the past 50 years. So he just knows what's funny.
Yes.
C, he's a great writer. So this experience, this comedic talent, this skill at writing, you get this wonderful script that people rightfully compare to something like Mel Brooks's The Producers. With this this low budget filmmaker making this film, as you said, around this film star who doesn't understand that it's being made. So that you have this wonderful physical comedy, you have this wonderful commentary, and it's almost satire. But, you know, I have to say, I think the real secret of this film, there's this great sweetness. Like, it's a sweet story. Like there's commentary, but it's never mean.
Right.
Heather Graham plays a character who is, you know, the running joke is she sleeps with members of the cast or members of the production that she thinks can get her bigger parts in this film.
Yeah.
And this is a character beat. This is a plot detail that I think very easily could have been mean-spirited. Very easily. But somehow, and credit where credit is due, I think Heather Graham is a really good comedic actress in and of herself. And I've not seen her in enough. Like between the, like, in my mind, this and Roller Girl in Boogie Nights are far and away the best roles she's ever had. But I feel like she should have had
more,
lots of these roles. So that there is this warmth and humanity to the way this character is depicted, where you never feel like she is exploited. You never feel like she has the kind of hardness that you would think a character like this would have. And she works. Christine Baranski, I'm sorry, is fantastic. Just always fantastic as this over the top actress, kind of out of a Sunset Boulevard type acting that she does. Am I the only one that didn't know Terrence Stamp could be funny? Terrence Stamp as the head of this cult, which is absolutely categorically not Scientology, is so dry.
Yes.
The scenes with him and Eddie Murphy's kinetic Kit Ramsey.
Yeah.
Was like they were like small films within this film. Mm-hmm. So that I just really, really love this film.
I get you saying Eddie being really locked in here and creating two whole characters, as it were. And I did enjoy that. It was interesting to read that he actually shot this film in between filming two other films. Mm-hmm. So it was like, wow. So I think they had like a 6-week window with him to get in. So it was almost like the movie.
Right.
You got me when you got me. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I thought it was very interesting to see that, because as Kit Ramsey, he is like balls to the wall, full of energy. He's popping his lines. He is like, he's moving. He's like almost cat-like in there with his movement. He's really wearing the role. And then when he shows up, it's Jiff, and to the movie's credit, they hold back on that. It's like you're into the movie before he shows up in the other role. And then you're like, oh wow, that is like a whole nother deal, even when that character, because of the plot, is made to look like his brother, Kit, you still feel the difference. Yes, in the physicality. And I agree with you. I think it is so much more impressive when you can just physically become like a different character, as opposed to the prosthetics. You liken it to Jerry Lewis in The Nutty Professor. I'm thinking about it on a more subtle depiction with Christopher Reeve when he was Superman.
Yeah.
Versus his Clark Kent.
Yeah.
Where you actually could feel it's almost like two different people. Just in the way his body stature and everything like that. So I did appreciate that with Eddie Murphy in this film. Steve Martin, I've always been a huge fan of Steve Martin. I love almost every one of his movies. His movie Roxanne is in my top 5 of movies of all time. I absolutely adore that movie. So I'm in the bag for Steve Martin here. And Frank Oz, as you pointed out, some people may know him primarily, first off, if you don't know Missionaries, he was a Muppet, one of the Muppeteers, Jim Henson's, and the voice of Miss Piggy, in case you didn't know that. But he is an accomplished director, as you noted, of some of the Muppet movies, but of comedy. And specifically in regards to this, and talking about this film, 2 of the movies that he directed, which I absolutely adore: Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, which he directs with Steve Martin and Michael Caine, and What About Bob, with Richard Dreyfuss and Bill Murray. And especially in What About Bob, because that is a movie where historically, you can go look up the stories, Bill Murray and Richard Dreyfuss hated each other.
Yeah.
They absolutely hated each other during the making of that movie. And if you watch that movie is one of the funniest movies around. I absolutely adore What About Bob. I absolutely adore Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. And it's because both of them are funny, satirical, and have just a hint of a dark tone to them. Right? And that is the one thing that I think is missing from this movie, because it feels like there should be just a little, like it's satirical, but satire, the best satire to me, lends itself to playing with fire a little bit. And this movie, it lights the match, but it doesn't play with the fire, I don't think. Especially with the whole deal with, Mindhead, aka not Scientology.
At all.
With the the satire of Hollywood itself. The script says that, forget all the budgets. Every movie can be made for $2,184.
Yeah.
Everything else is just taxes, fees, and everything. All movies cost $2,184. Great line. There needs to be a little bit more of that. I keep wanting this movie to give me a little bit more of that bite. And I think the reason why it's not there, unfortunately, I have to lay at the hand of the writer, Steve Martin, who I just said I absolutely adore. But in 1999, I think Steve Martin's at a point where maybe being a little bit too cute with his stories, playing it a little safe, because like you said, he's been around for a little bit at this point. He's still a star of note, but his movies ain't jumping, people ain't racing to the theaters for Steve Martin movies anymore at this time. And Eddie Murphy's presence notwithstanding, they are co-stars, but in tone and feel, this is a Steve Martin movie that Eddie Murphy is in, not an Eddie Murphy movie to me. And I think he's getting plays a little bit too cute, and I want a little bit of that edge that was there in The Jerk, that was there a little bit in Dead Man Don't Wear Plaid, and that makes me like the movie, but I'm sitting here waiting to just really jump in. It doesn't help that he cast Jamie King. I can't stand Jamie King.
I just ignored him. Jamie Kennedy.
Jamie Kennedy.
I pretended he wasn't even there.
Yeah, well, but he's there a lot. So
is it a lot?
It's enough.
Oh yeah,
he's in the credits. So I can't get down with him.
I always forget he's in it.
Heather Graham, I like Heather Graham.
Yeah,
but admittedly, this is early Heather Graham.
Yeah,
so she's not as fully formed in this movie. Christine Baranski, I absolutely adore Christine Baranski.
Of course,
and I think rightfully, she's in her own movie.
Yes.
in this movie.
Sometimes literally.
Literally. Yeah. But it's not enough to save it. I think there still could have been a little bit more bite there. Yeah. And Frank Oz is a director from What About Bob, from Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, even some of his works with the Muppets, because the Muppets could walk that line a little bit too. That I think you got the right director for it, but I think honestly he may have seen the script and it's Steve Martin. He's not going to rewrite Steve Martin. Okay, let's make it happen. I think he maybe phones this one in a little bit. I think he phones it in a little bit.
I think, and you said it. I think you're looking for What About Bob. But I think what you get is something more like Roxanne. Because Roxanne doesn't have a bite. Roxanne doesn't, like, I think.
No, it doesn't have a.
I think this has. I think Steve Martin has this affection for Hollywood, the fantasy of Hollywood.
Okay.
That this kindness, this gentleness that I'm talking about, which you see as a lack of bite, I would group this more with something like Roxanne. And I think, you know, I will grant you that because it has the veneer of a satire, you're thinking that this bite is coming. But I don't know if that was ever
You don't think that
the
was
goal.
His goal?
I don't think that was the goal.
I kind of think it is, man. And some of it just in
like just the loving sweep, like even from the very beginning with this lovingly sweeping shot of Bowfinger's apartment, where it looks like it looks like an apartment from 19. It's like a bungalow.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
this
yeah,
old
yeah.
school
The old-
bungalow.
right, Hollywood bungalow.
And there is this kind of throwback feel to the way Hollywood looks throughout the film.
Yeah.
That you know, even the conceit that they're trying to put this movie together and sell it to the bigwig producer, played by Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
And you know the bit with the hanging cord because he pulled the phone out of the car, where it felt very gentle to me.
But that's the thing. Yeah,
But I think that was the point.
yeah, but like you said, if that's the point, then why wear the veneer of satire? Because I think that veneer, like you said, is there, and I think it's meant to be there. Then I'm not saying go for the jugular, but I'm saying then okay, then let's give us the bite. Let's take let's really bite a little bit into, you know, not Scientology, right? Let's go with it. Let's take a deeper stab at the whole inflated ego of the late 80s, 90s action star. You know,
You don't think they stabbed that enough with pulling the gun and the KKKs in the script and like.
yeah, but that's early in the movie.
Yeah,
But then you lose that.
But then by the end, when he falls apart, well, I mean, again, it's Eddie Murphy in both roles. Like, you know, Kit Ramsey leaves the film, so you know,
I don't know.
And then when he comes back, they actually drive him crazy.
they do cry. Yeah, I do.
like you're talking about darkness. I realized that this is actually gaslighting the film. Like they actually drove him crazy.
I don't know. Another thing, a piece of trivia. You probably saw this. This is kind of based on a real story.
Yeah, 1927. 1927.
Mary Pickens.
Yeah.
People just following around.
They followed around and made a movie around her. That's right. I love that.
That is crazy.
Look, I think there is a kind of person that loves Hollywood. And as I'm sitting here talking about it, I'm kind of putting it together. Like you're talking about grouping this and you're thinking it should be grouped with something like What About Bob? But besides Roxanne, this feels like the Hollywood from the Muppet movie. Like, you know, again, this kind of timeless throwback, kind of almost not quite sepia toned, but this kind of haze of you know, again, the mythology of Hollywood.
Yeah, I guess it does. And maybe what it is, to be fair, because it does have a little bit of like that. It's not set in those tones, but like you said, with the whole bungalow, it gives you a little bit of that feel. Perhaps I'm looking for the bite that you know what I'm looking for?
What?
I'm looking for Get Shorty. That's
Right.
what I'm looking for.
Right. Which Get Shorty is a crime film disguised as a comedy.
But it is a satire.
Yes.
It is a satire of Hollywood.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, maybe I'm looking at...
and it's not Get Shorty.
Oh,
at all.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Few things are Get Shorty.
Well, Get Shorty.
Yeah.
Top 10.
Yeah, but you're talking about that bite.
Yeah, a little bit
sort of
that bite there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe you're right. Maybe I am because I'm saying all of this, I would recommend the movie.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I did enjoy it. Mm-hmm. It's I just feel like I wanted more.
Right.
But I did enjoy the movie. It is funny. One of the funniest comedy scenes of the 90s is Jiff running across the expressway.
That was so funny. And again, talking about him vanishing in the role, I actually thought for a split second, wow, I'm glad they're not trying to get Eddie Murphy to do this. Because, Eddie Murphy is way too much of a prima donna to even, I'm like, at first I was like, well, how are they going to do the special effects? And I'm like, well, it's not Eddie Murphy doing it, it's Jiff. Mm-hmm. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah. It's so at the end of the day, like I said, I would recommend
Jiff seeing Heather Graham's breast.
Awesome.
That 45 seconds of him respond, like just Eddie Murphy is so funny. I've wanted to see a script for what I wrote it down. What is the script? Because another bit of vignettes. Kit Ramsey yelling at his white manager. Him saying, find me the script for something called Buck the Wonder Slave so that he could win an Oscar.
Well, you already hit on the bit where he counts the K's in the script.
He counts the K's.
It is 1,456. It's divided by 3.
When that dude says to him, it's not Shakespeare, and he says, what? You see what he's doing? And his boy says, I know he's doing something, but tell me what he's doing. He says, Shakespeare. Shake a spear. He just called me a spear chucker. Come on, man. And again, Eddie Murphy is such a good sport to go along with, because again, for those of you who don't really remember the 90s like this is the kind of thing that people used to say Eddie Murphy was like. Like he had this posse and like it was this sort of veneer of anti-whiteness that people ascribed to him. And like, this is very much, and then just that kind of arrogance. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So he was just such a good sport. And I do wonder because, it just left my hand because originally this wasn't supposed to be Eddie Murphy.
No.
Steve Martin wanted,
Keanu Reeves.
And I wonder how much of this was rewritten for Eddie Murphy and how much Eddie Murphy kind of contributed and ad-libbed. Because I think it can go either way.
Well, I think,
Like I think Steve Martin is a good enough writer that he could have come up with Shakespeare, spear chucker. Mm-hmm. But I also think Eddie Murphy could have. Right.
I got this part.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that he did the role. I could not see Keanu Reeves in this role. And mind you, the role would have looked different, but Keanu's energy just in general.
Honestly, the only other person I could see in this role who could play both roles like this in 99 is Tom Cruise.
See, I always, you know what? It's funny because of the not Scientology part.
He wouldn't have done that.
Well, he wouldn't have done it, but that's why I always thought it was maybe a satire of him.
I 100% think this is about Tom Cruise. Because, I'm sure black people become Scientologists.
Well.
But, Isaac Hayes is on the phone, apparently. Mm-hmm. But when we think about Scientology, this is some white people stuff.
Yeah.
So, and then, the big action star in the Scientology, who else is it but Tom Cruise?
Yeah, it would have been Tom Cruise. I maybe in this role in '99, Bruce Willis. Just thinking of somebody that maybe
Is Bruce Willis a good enough actor
to do the
to play the right? I'm thinking about
role.
good enough actor to play dual roles.
I know. I'm thinking maybe I could see Tom Cruise.
Oh, Tom Cruise
Because
could
Tom
have.
doesn't-
He would have killed it.
He doesn't get the props that he deserves.
Not
as
at all.
He's a straight actor.
Tom Cruise would have killed this.
He would have killed it.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking the only other person maybe at that time. You know,
I don't think Bruce Willis could have pulled this off.
maybe probably not.
Like again, who else besides Tom Cruise could have played both roles?
Yeah, you're right. You know what? Now that I think about it, because I don't think that Bruce Willis would have had the fun with himself.
Bruce Willis.
I think he.
I also don't think Bruce Willis is a good enough actor. And I love Bruce Willis. I don't think Bruce Willis could have played these dual roles.
Fair enough.
You know, at the height of his
Powers.
powers.
Yeah. Would you recommend Bowfinger?
I would recommend Bowfinger. I think I think you know, in one of the one of our postings you said, you know, is this Eddie Murphy's last great role or this, that, and other, but I do think you have this pocket where it's like this in Life, and it was something else that I saw that was closer to this film than not.
I can tell you. Let me look it up because he was.
I thought there was a third film in there where I was like, oh yeah, that was a good Eddie Murphy movie too.
He was. What was he filming around in this time, which was 1999?
Yeah, I don't think it was anything super good.
Say that. He was doing. Well, this is not his full filmography. That's why I'm like, wait a minute. I'm not even seeing Life. In 1999, he releases Bowfinger and Life.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that is
Or before that, after or before.
Life is before Bowfinger.
Okay.
Because he's filming Life at the same time. That's
Okay.
when he's got the 6-week break from. And then he is doing Nutty Professor 2.
Okay.
Yeah, Nutty Professor 2, and that's followed by Shrek.
Right. So and then
His filmography takes a downward turn.
right. Well,
After
look, when Shrek hits, part of the reason it takes a downward turn, he
don't need no more money.
spends so much energy trying to swim through all the money, trying to get to the set. Good Lord. You ever hear Chris Rock tell the story? Like that's why he did Madagascar? Eddie Murphy said, you better make some of this cartoon money.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't blame him.
Yeah.
I don't blame him, man.
Good Lord.
I wanted to touch on other thing you said earlier. You put in a pin a little bit about Jerry Lewis.
Yes.
You said Nutty Professor is your favorite Jerry Lewis movie.
Yeah.
Nutty Professor leaves me cold.
Why?
Because I quickly soured on Jerry Lewis because he's, especially once you start reading stories about comedy, which I was always a fan of comedy.
Absolutely.
I read the stories and I know about why him and Dean broke up and stuff like that. So Jerk Lewis became like I just didn't dig. But
I'm glad we're talking about because it's something I wanted to mention. Go ahead.
But the Nutty Professor, I always found it like just I don't know, just a little bit too rough, like the whole buddy love, and like you said, you're saying that you think he's doing a little bit of introspection of himself. I don't think the man is that introspective enough, especially not at that time, to do that. But I think he's blind enough to not realize that he actually is doing
about himself.
On there. And it just leaves me cold. My favorite Jerry Lewis movie and I don't return to any of them now. But if I were to return to any of them, would be the bellhop.
Is that where he plays the different version? Oh no, the bellhop is where he plays. Well, I also like the one where he plays the different versions with the little girl that he ends up adopting. What's that called?
Oh God, I think this.
I know we've talked about this before because nobody likes this movie but me.
Yeah, it got me jumping through.
I know
Filmography.
You would think I would know it off the top of my head since I'm the only one on earth that likes it.
Yeah, I don't even think Jerry likes it anymore. Yeah. Jerry Lewis, his filmography. I know the movie that you're talking about, and it's not a good movie. Where's this career? Come on. Oh God. It takes you so. Admittedly, he's had such an amazing career. It takes you a while to get to his freaking filmography,
which we have to.
The Family Jewels.
The Family Jewels. I like the Family Jewels. Yeah.
Yeah.
But speaking of Jerry Lewis, did you hear the Jerry Lewis news?
Oh, about the clown.
The clown that cried. They're going to show it.
Yeah, but they haven't said where.
They haven't said where and how many.
It's supposed to happen like in the spring.
Yeah, and how many people are going to see it and this, that, and the other. For those of you that don't know, The Clown That Cried is the infamous Nazi clown movie that Jerry Lewis made. And the plot, the plot is out, right?
Yeah.
Like the plot has always been that Jerry Lewis plays a clown.
A Jewish clown
at a concentration camp who amuses kids and people before they are executed.
Yes.
And infamously, it has been sealed up.
By Jerry.
And over the years, you hear people say, I saw snippets of it.
Some people have seen it.
People have seen it, but it's always something real. It was 3 a.m. I was in an unnamed producer's mansion in the basement, and he smuggled out a copy, I saw it.
It reportedly is not a completed film.
Yeah.
But it's enough that you can see everything. The one person who I believe that actually he says he saw it, and I believe he saw it, is Harry Shearer, the voice of Homer Simpson. And he says it's something like, he's not going to say good or bad about it. But yeah, the story is out that Jerry Lewis had worked up some type of agreement with I forget if it was a company or whomever, that this movie would be able to be screened in 2024.
Right.
And I think they set it's supposed to be like July, but there was no, at least as far as we know, there's been no indication, like you said, of how it will be screened.
Or even once it's screened, will there be a wider release?
Right. You want to see it?
Oh my God, yes.
I do want to.
Dog, you got to. It's like the Magnificent Ambersons missing footage, and they say like they have the storyboards of King Kong fighting the giant spiders, but they didn't film it. Like this is like if you get a chance, like you gotta see it.
It is one of those film holy grail.
Yeah. So
we'll see. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
All right.
That has been our review.
What better way to end a black film review than talking about an old film legend
of
about
Jewish clowns
and Jerry Lewis? How else would we end?